I can't find myself here. What the heck? I'm not even, I don't even have it. Like, it usually does a tab on the top of your page. Oh. Hi, Counselor. I'm well. How are you?
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Good evening. We're having connectivity issues. Give me just one moment, okay?
Yes.
I don't know. It's weird because you can hear my voice, but I think you can hear my voice because of this. So let me.
Good evening, everybody. I would like to call this City Council meeting to order for Tuesday, March 9th, 2021. The time is approximately 6:05. With that said, everybody please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States
of America,
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with
with liberty
and
and
justice
justice
for
for
all.
all.
Please continue standing. I'd like to call on Councilor Justin Salazar Torres for the moment of meditation and prayer. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Father God, we come before you, Lord. First of all, always thanking you for our many blessings and thanking you for letting us gather today. And always, Lord, we pray that during this meeting, Lord, it's always less of us and more of you, and let your will be done. Amen.
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 Thank you, Counselor. Mayor Javier Sanchez sends his regrets. He is not able to make the meeting tonight. So with that, as Mayor Pro Tem, I will be running the meeting. So with that said, before you is the approval of the agenda. I'm looking for a motion.
Motion to approve, sir.
Okay, motion's been
Second.
made. Motion's been made, Councilor Salazar Torres, seconded by Councilor Manny Martinez. Angelica, if you could please call roll. Angelica, would you be able to call roll? Are you there?
Looks like her mic is muted.
Okay, also, we would like to, prior to that, I jumped the gun a little bit. I would like to ensure that we have a quorum. So we'll call roll for that first, and then we'll move on to the approval of the agenda.
Can you hear me?
Yes, can you hear me now? Thank you.
I apologize. Counselor Peggy Sue Martinez,
Present and honored to be here.
Counselor Justin Salazar Torres,
Present.
Counselor John Ramon Vihil, Counselor Manuel J. Martinez,
Here?
Counselor John L. Ritchie, Counselor Denise D. Benavides,
Present.
Counselor Dorothy D. Valdez,
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Dennis Tim Salazar.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Very good. Thank you, Angelica. Next item, councilors, before you is the approval of the agenda. If you had an opportunity, I know Councilor Salazar Torres actually made the motion for approval of the agenda, and Councilor Manny Martinez seconded the motion. Angelica, can you call roll for that?
Mayor Pro Tem Dennis Tim Salazar,
For the motion.
Counselor Peggy Sue Martinez,
In favor of the motion.
Counselor John L. Ritchie, Counselor Justin Salazar Torres,
In favor.
Counselor John Ramon Vihil, Counselor Manuel J. Martinez,
In favor?
Counselor Denise D. Benavides,
In favor.
Counselor Dorothy D. Valdez.
In favor.
Motion carries.
Very good. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is item number 5, consent agenda. These are the minutes for February 23rd, 2021. Looking for a motion.
Motion to approve, sir?
Second.
Okay, motion's been made by Councilor Manny Martinez, seconded by Councilor Justin Salazar Torres. City Clerk Angelica, if you could please take roll.
Counselor Dorothy D. Valdez,
In favor.
Counselor Denise D. Benavides,
In favor.
Counselor Manuel J. Martinez,
In favor?
Counselor John Ramon Vihil, Counselor Justin Salazar Torres,
In favor.
Counselor Peggy Sue Martinez,
In favor.
Mayor Pro Tem Dennis Tim Salazar.
For the motion.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Next item number 6 is public comments. City Clerk Angelica, is there anybody that has signed up for public comments at this time?
Yes, we have Miss Mel Salazar from the Northern New Mexico Crisis Center.
Okay, very good. Thank you for coming. Please state your name and your business before the City Council.
Yes, my name is Mel Sanchez, and I'm the Executive Director for the Crisis Center of Northern New Mexico.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Welcome. And yeah, go ahead and please state your business before the City Council.
Evening, councilors. To start, I wanted to thank you guys all again for your time today and for placing the Crisis Center on your agenda again. We first met back in December as I came in as the new Executive Director for the Crisis Center of Northern New Mexico. And in that same meeting, you all approved our lease so that we can continue our services at 577 El Llano Road. At the time, we were relieved we had finalized the process as our lease had expired several years prior and was stalling an expansion in program funding. We saw it as the first formalized step in what has been a great effort to bring stability and an increased standard at our organization. As can be verified through the recorded December minutes, Councilor Peggy Sue Martinez asked City Manager Martinez if anything had changed on this lease from the previous years that they had leased this building to the Crisis Center. City Manager Martinez replied that he believed everything had stayed the same with the amount per month payment for 3 years. We did not provide further input as we had also been under the impression that the amount per month payment would stay the same as we had been paying $500 a month since 2011. When we received the fully signed document, we found an error had been made and that our rent had actually doubled to $1,000 a month without warning or discussion. When we discussed this with the city manager, an expired lease was referenced stating that there had been a conversation over an increase in rent in the coming years, but was not enforced as this organization had continued to pay $500 a month for years. While we understand the city's need to increase rent on this building, we ask the council to be open to renegotiation as we navigate an already restricted budget in the midst of COVID. As a nonprofit, we invest every single dollar in increasing the quality of client care, and an unplanned doubling of rent payment has forced us to reallocate in ways that are detrimental to the quality that we can provide as we care for our community. Later in this agenda, a lease addendum proposal for us to spread into what was previously the police substation at our building will be presented, which comes with an attached $143 increase in rent based off of our current payment per square foot at the $1,000 rent rate. I ask that if we adjust our current rate into an incrementally increasing plan, that the pricing for the substation also reflects that. We have paid the gas utility for that space without access to it since 2009, amounting to $5,534.19, and can provide all of our payment records. We had done so in the spirit of community for Española, and now ask for the same leeway as we plan to utilize that space strictly for community outreach with community support groups and the creation of a community pantry so that we can fully become the crisis center of Northern New Mexico.
Very good. Thank you, Ms. Sanchez. Appreciate your comments. And as you mentioned, we will be going over this item a little bit more down the agenda, so the city council will be able to discuss it more thoroughly along with staff and with you as well.
All right,
Thank you. City Clerk Angelica, is there anybody else for public comments at this time?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you very much, ma'am. Okay, next item on the agenda is councilor comments and announcements. Any councilors have a comment at this time? If, like Angelica mentioned, if you could please raise your hand or just call me and I'll call on you.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Councilor Vigil, you have the floor, sir.
Yes, I wanted to bring a couple of things to the city manager's attention. I'm really happy about the work that the Streets Department and Public Works is doing in Prince Drive, and I've heard a lot of comments from the neighborhood. They're very excited about getting the area cleaned up. It was really way overdue, and I want to thank all those guys. I know Elijah, Stephen, they were all working down there in their crews, and thank you for what you do for the city. I just want to make sure, Mr. Martinez, that we continue to clean up the area and start working on cleaning up the brush on the north and the south side of the ranch as well. And let's not forget about that. I also wanted to bring to the attention of the manager. I've heard from a lot of constituents recently about the connection fees and the process to connect for utilities here at the city of Española. I'd really hope that we can revise our process, especially the deposit. A lot of homes are selling here in Española, and to just set up a natural gas and to set up an electric account, you're paying less than $200, but for the city of Española, you're having to pay $300 deposit. And then as well as it's pretty difficult to establish an account because they're having to bring in the warranty deed. And for a lot of people, that's just very difficult, the process here. And I hope that Mr. Martinez, you can look at reviewing that process with the staff. And I thank them for all they do, but we need to be able to make a customer service friendly atmosphere here at the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Is there any other comments from the council at this time?
Councilor, Mayor Pro Tem Salazar, I have a few comments, please.
Yes, you have the floor, Councilor Peggy Martinez. Go ahead, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. I want to reiterate Councilor Vigil's comments concerning the cleanup of Prince Ranch last week or the week at the end of the week before that. The staff was diligently out there cleaning debris and cleaning a lot of stuff that had been ignored for a very long time. So obviously the constituents of Prince Ranch are very excited to see that happening. So we certainly appreciate the staff and their efforts, the city manager and his efforts in moving that project along. And we continue to hope that the debris at the bottom gets cleaned out also. That'll be really nice. Also just want to take a moment to recognize the pharmacies here in town and what they've done for helping our community to be vaccinated, and the college as well. These sites have opened their doors to help the vaccination process here for our seniors. People over 75 were the targeted group. And I had an opportunity to drive somebody to Walgreens for a vaccine, and the process was relatively easy. So we certainly appreciate that they're frontline workers, that they continue to stay open throughout the whole COVID situation. And we also appreciate that they did open their doors to help out with the vaccinating of our constituents. So we're very thankful for that. Special shout out to those at Fairview Pharmacy. They go above and beyond also in serving this community, have not lost one day. They've continued to fill prescriptions for those that need them. And we certainly appreciate what they do for our community also. I'd like to also thank the staff at the Espanola Hospital, the ambulances, and everybody that has never missed a shift during this whole COVID. It's been very challenging for everybody, but I assume that it's probably been more challenging for those that work in healthcare and how they've risked their own health and their family's health and well-being to serve our community. So we're very grateful for them also. So I just really would like to see the city possibly down the road have a special celebration of those people that have been on the front line and have continued to work. With that said, of course, we wouldn't want to ignore our own frontline group, those that are here at City Hall that continue to do the job, and also our public safety employees, fire department and police department that are out in the front lines, working every day without failure, without missing a shift to make sure that this community remains safe. So we certainly appreciate their efforts also. Other than that, I just want to thank the staff also for coming in and doing what they have to do. And I would like to hear from the city manager and during the meeting as to when City Hall will open. It's been very difficult for people wanting to do business to have to be locked out and not have an opportunity to do business face to face. So I'm interested in finding out what the plan is for going back to a little bit of normalcy. That's it. Thank you very much, Mayor Pro Tem Salazar.
Thank you, Councilor Martinez. Your acknowledgements are very much appreciated. And yes, we cannot thank them enough for everything that they've done for this past year. Thank you. Anybody else from the city council that has any comments? Yes, Councilor Manny Martinez, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Just a question for the city manager. He can answer during his report, but I just was hoping he can give an update on State Road 76 and where we're at with that with the state to see when that project's going to start. And also if he could give us a little update on any of the roads in town that might be getting resurfaced anytime soon. I know that now with this past weather that we had, it kind of tore up a lot of the roads and a lot of the streets, especially in the areas where those we've had to do water repair or dig up the roads. I know that there's some areas there where they need to be repaired. So I just want to see if you could give us an update on that, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Manny Martinez. Yes, for the city manager's report, if city manager is agreeable, we could do it at that time for his report. Thank you. Is there any other comments from the council at this time? Okay, I don't think I see any, unless I'm missing somebody. Okay, very good. Let's move on to the next item on the agenda, which is matters from the mayor. This is a Little Hands Big Heart Award presented to Ava Salazar. Mayor Javier Sanchez sends his regrets, of course, for this specific item that he's not able to attend. He really wanted to be here for this item, but he's unable to attend. I would also like to apologize for not being physically at the meeting for this at this time. So I would like to turn this over to Councilor Peggy Sue Martinez, who is in attendance at the City Council chambers to take over on this item. Councilor Peggy Sue Martinez, you have the floor, ma'am.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Salazar. On behalf of the mayor, of course, we apologize for his absence. He was not feeling well. On behalf of Mayor Pro Tem Dennis Tim Salazar, Councilors Manny Martinez, Denise Benavides, Didi Valdez, Justin Torres Salazar, John Ramon Vigil, John Ritchie, and myself, present this award to a sweet little girl from the Espanola Valley. Her name is Eva Salazar. She is daughter of AJ Salazar and Andrea Salazar. She is also the granddaughter of Aaron Salazar and Christine Salazar and Gloria and Cindy Gallegos. So how this award came to be, just giving you a little background, is my daughter lives on the west side in a different district than I do, in District 1. And one morning, apparently there was Valentine foils hanging all the way down the street on everybody's fence. And I asked my daughter, who passed out Valentines? And she said, I'm not sure. So she went to her alarm system to look at it, and there was little Ava with her grandma and her grandpa directing them exactly where to hang it and how to do it. So I thought that was very interesting and very sweet. And I think that attitude at such a young age encompasses who we are as a community and who we are as people. I just think it's very heartwarming that she went out of her way to present Valentine's to the whole street. So if anybody gets a chance, they're still up. You can go down Don Diego Street and there's Valentine's going all the way down. So I'll read the official award. It says the City of Espanola Little Hands Big Hearts Award, presented this 9th day of March 2021 to Miss Eva Salazar in recognition of your selflessness and kindness to your community. Mayor Javier E. Sanchez.
Well done, Ava. Very good job. Ava is in attendance at this time. Ava and her family, is that correct, Councilor Martinez?
Yes, she's at the podium right now. I don't know if you can see her. Can you see her?
Okay. Okay, yes, I do now. I do now. So yeah.
Ava, she's the Valentine of our neighborhood. So this is the award that the mayor and the council presents to you. Thank you very much for what you did. That was so nice. That was so sweet. Thank you so much. And this is a little gift bag from the City of Espanola. And you can thank our city clerk, Miss Angelica over there, because she put that together for you because she's so awesome like that.
Okay.
Thank you. And this is Councilor John.
Good job. It looks great.
Looks beautiful. I send the city all the pictures of all the Valentines. And everybody was just going, oh, that was so nice of her. You're so sweet. Thank you again. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Do you have anything else you want to say?
I don't think so now.
No. Okay, well, thank you for coming.
You're
And
welcome.
thank you for doing that. We certainly appreciate you, okay?
Okay.
Okay, honey, thanks again.
Thank you, Ava. Great job. And that's great leadership. Good job. Keep it up.
Thank you guys for
Councilor
bringing her. We certainly appreciate that.
Thank you, Councilor Martinez, for the presentation as well.
Absolutely.
In regards to these items, specifically what we just presented, I would like to turn the floor over to our city clerk, Angelica Serrano, to be able to speak about this a little bit.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and members of the governing body. So this award is something new the City of Espanola is launching to recognize and honor our youngest citizens who are doing good deeds in the community to make life a little brighter for others. If any of the listening public would like to nominate an individual under the age of 18 to receive this award, please contact your respective counselor or the city clerk's department with actions taken and or behaviors demonstrated by the youth. It is our hope that we will be able to represent a different district each month to spotlight youth making a difference throughout our city. My number directly is 747-6012. You can call me to check to see who your counselor is so that I can pass on that information. Thank you so much.
Very good. Thank you, City Clerk Serrano. At this time, I think too, this is a great opportunity for us to be able to recognize and acknowledge the hard work and the positive influence our youth has in the Espanola Valley. So this is really exciting, and I'm personally looking forward to much more presentations to be able to notice who these young leaders are and future leaders, for our valley. Thank you. Okay, moving on to the next item on the agenda is going to be matters from the city manager, our city manager, Javier Martinez, city business. You have the floor, City Manager Martinez.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor Pro Tem Dennis Ten Salazar and members of the governing body. Before you, there is a list for city business updates. So I'll go ahead and start off with addressing some of the questions that were brought to my attention now with this meeting. So I will start off with Councilor John Ramon Vigil. Your question in regards to Carter Prince Ranch. So if we go down to bullet number 3, gives an update as to what we did there. And then the phase 2 will be coordinated with our fire department in the near future to go ahead and start burning all the tree and branch rubble that is there at the ranch. So that is in the works right now. So phase 1 was just completed at the end of last week on Friday, which we did pretty good. I'd like to bring attention to the Public Works Department, the Parks Department, General Services out there, even our IT, which he went out there with the drone to get some aerial footage of before and hopefully after of that whole site. I believe that our Public Works Director mentioned to me that we were able to take a lot of that debris or rubble and trash to the scrapyard, and we collected close to 300 from all the wrecked cars and other items that were there. So with that, and also to for Mr. Councilor John Ramon Vigil in regards to the fees for utilities, we are currently working to update the 300 ordinance, which includes about costs. So that is in the works right now. Right now with our Public Works Director, our Customer Service Supervisor, and our Planning and Land Use Director are collaborating together to revise the 300 ordinance for this specific purpose that you just brought up. I'll go ahead and address Councilor Peggy Sue Martinez's question in regards to opening the city. So I put out a memo at the tail end of February, Friday, the last Friday of February, that we would open up a City Hall, Planning and Land Use lobbies, and the PD lobby Monday, March 1st. So we currently have the lobbies, all 3 lobbies open to the public. Unfortunately, we are still restricting in-house dining for the senior center. We're still doing curbside service there. In our current yellow level conditions, it very specifically states that indoor recreation must remain closed. So, and that's specifically for the basketball court and the swimming pool. So hopefully that we can, the numbers have been dropping pretty significant throughout the weeks, that hopefully we can move into the green level, and that will allow us to open up a little bit more items to include the recreations department. I'll go ahead and proceed with Councilor Manny Martinez. So if you go to bullet number 1, we've been communicating back and forth with Department of Transportation, Wilson and Company, and our contractor, Adame Construction. So as you can see, we ran into some issues in regards to the traffic control plan. Adame Construction submitted a traffic control plan to the Department of Transportation a few months back, and it did not meet the standards for Department of Transportation. So with what the requirements that NMDOT was asking that Adame to provide was a 24/7 pilot car to be able to process traffic through that construction site, which increased the cost of the traffic control plan by 6,000%. And it's not an over exaggeration. The initial traffic control plan was priced at a little over $10,000. And if you go by 6,000%, you're looking at a cost of close to $700,000. Now, the total cost of the project is 1.2 million. So we're going back to NMDOT to see if we can adjust or bring down that cost to where NMDOT will be accepting another traffic control plan. So that's where we're at right now. This discussions were as of last week with Wilson and Company. As far as roads that we're looking to start now when the weather warms up, if we scroll down to one of the last bullets, it's where it says where we received a quote from GM Emulsion for North McCurdy asphalt patchwork to cover a total of 2,500 square yards. So we have a grant, I believe it's the MAP NMDOT grant that provided us with $80,000. Their quote came in just slightly under that at 79,306. I spoke with our public works director in regards to West Pueblo, where I believe a few weeks back, the water and wastewater department were working to repair some leaks. So they're just waiting for the weather to warm up a little bit to be able to get asphalt and to fix that. But in the meantime, they sent out the departments to maybe add more material to alleviate the huge holes there for now. That's the question that I received for the counselors. I'll go ahead and I want to bring everybody's attention to the second bullet, if we can scroll up a little bit. So the second bullet is the introductory session with the U.S. Magistrate Court to discuss the USA and Santa Clara Pueblo versus City of Espanola case to be tentatively scheduled for the afternoon of March 24th. A public notice and agenda for an executive session will be posted once we have solid confirmation from the courts. So as of this weekend, we got a solid confirmation that it will proceed on March 24th at 1 p.m. So I ask the governing body to please submit me their name if they are planning to attend, because the judge needs this information before the end of the week. So if you can send me an email or a text that you will plan to attend, we'll go ahead and put a public notice if the majority of you attend. That way we are in line with a public notice.
City Manager Martinez,
Yes, go ahead.
will that court hearing be via Zoom or will it be in person?
It will be via Zoom, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yes. The other item I'd like to bring to your attention is one of the bullets where it has a discussion of the use of the Lucero Center Gymnasium by the Pathways Shelter as an overflow or in emergency situations. I've been working with our legal team to generate a hold harmless agreement between the city and the shelter to coordinate this. And I believe that I have asked Ms. Dora Terrazas to place this on the agenda for our Community Services Committee for next week for approval of this hold harmless agreement. I know that questions were brought up to you and also to myself when we proceeded to do the cleanup of the property north of Ranchitos Park a few weeks ago in the displacement of individuals that were displaced there. So this is what we're doing to initiate to be able to be helpful in case the Pathway Shelters ever needs us in an emergency situation. With that, that's pretty much the main thing that I want to bring to your attention. Also, I'd like to give a shout out to, as a promotion to a former Sergeant Jeremy Apodaca with the Espanola Police Department, who has recently been promoted to lieutenant. So I'd like to bring that attention to the police department and all of you of that promotion to Mr. Apodaca. That's all I have. I stand for any questions.
Very good. Thank you, City Manager. Congratulations to new Lieutenant Jeremy Apodaca. Councilor Manny Martinez, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. And thank you, City Manager Martinez, for your report. As far as on the, why are they requesting a 24/7 pilot car for that project? Are we planning on leaving trenches open during times that they won't be working, or what is the reason behind that? Do you know, sir?
For my understanding, Counselor Manny Martinez, is from what NMDOT has told us is they don't feel that our contractor will be able to facilitate a good time to be able to do a dig and backfill it in a single day. So they feel that a lot of the trenching will have to stay open for a longer period of time, requesting this pilot car to be able to facilitate the huge volume of traffic that State Road 76 generates east to west.
Okay, and also on the other question I had when it came to some of the road work, I understand the North McCurdy asphalt project, but I know that because of the weather and again because of some of the trenching that has been done, like on both east and west Pueblo Street, there's a lot of areas there that could use some patchwork. I didn't know if that was scheduled in any of the city to be able to fix those roads, sir.
Oh, absolutely, Councilor Martinez. Yes, so as of right now, our Public Works Director, Mr. Trujillo, sent out his crew to double check, because I did forward that email that you sent me with that concern to see about if some of the patchwork had degraded or sunk down, to be able to mend it until we are able to patch it as warmer weather approaches.
Okay, thank you, sir. And on a side note, sir, would you be able to add to your report at any point, like meetings that you've had with both Rio Arriba and Santa Fe County officials, so that we know what projects they're doing within the city limits that may not be attached to us per se as a city, but that we know that that's what they're doing within the city limits with those two different counties, sir?
Absolutely, Councilor Martinez. That's a great idea. Unfortunately, I've sent several emails to Santa Fe County manager. I have not gotten any response back. As far as Rio Arriba County, I've had several communications with our county manager from there, but no big projects have been forwarded to me as of yet.
Thank you, sir.
Very
You're
good. Thank you. Thank you, Councilor Martinez. Next up is Councilor John Ritchie. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. City Manager, again, thank you for your report and all the updates. I just wanted a little more detail on the lighting replacement. When does that start? And when are we looking at completion?
Yes, thank you, Councilor Ritchie. A great question. So if we can scroll down a little bit further on the list, we have submitted a list of all lighting that we know that belong to the city for a quote, if you will. So if you look at all the bullets there, it has Paseo de Oñate Bridge, a lot of lights along Highway 68, Paseo de Oñate, all these areas. So this list exactly that you see here has been submitted to Bixby Electric. We are waiting for them to give us a quote, and they're doing it in sections. So as all of you know, the first section they did was the southbound lane between Upper and Lower San Pedro. So right now we're waiting on Bixby to get back to us to submit their quotes so we can proceed to generate a purchase requisition and purchase order.
Follow-up question. So we're going to have LED lighting throughout the city with our lights. What regarding Hemis, the poles, are they going to upgrade theirs to LED to be?
Councilor Ritchie, so from my understanding in the meetings that I've had with Hemis Electric, so anytime they come out to repair of any lights, they are automatically upgrading to LEDs. Now, if they're gonna, I don't know if they plan to replace LEDs even if the light is functional, but as of right now, what they've reported to me is anytime they go out to repair any lights that we call them on that they belong to them, they're automatically replacing them with LED lights.
So our lighting isn't gonna be consistent in correct?
So Councilor Ritchie, what we're doing is we're focusing on the lights that are currently not inoperable. So once we've established and corrected all those issues, if the funding allows, we'll go ahead back and start replacing LEDs from there on out until the funding has expired.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Ritchie. Counselor Manny Martinez, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. On a follow-up there from Councilor Ritchie, I noticed on the lights, we have Paseo de Oñate bridge lights. Correct me if I'm wrong, but aren't those the state lights? Are they not taking care of that, or did we take over those lights, sir?
Thank you, Manny, Councilor Manny Martinez. That's a good question. So we've been back and forth in regards to this specific topic with the Department of Transportation. So a few years back, we reached out to Mr. Paul Brasher in regards to the lights of Oñate Bridge. They agreed to come and fix them, and of course they did. They came and fixed them, but unfortunately, they were either vandalized again or something happened that the whole lights are out again. So we proceeded to reach out to NMDOT again, and they provided an agreement where it states that Paseo de Oñate, 84 to 85, they had wheeled it over to the city to include any maintenance to lighting or to the bridges. So that was a little bit vague in my opinion. So I reached out to our legal team with Mr. Jonas Nahum for some clarification, and with his thoughts as well, that it was too vague to determine on who the ownership was. So we're go ahead and proceeding to get him fixed and get them done right. If it comes out later on that we were not responsible for them, we will send them an invoice for what we did.
On a follow-up, is there any other lights on the listing that is also in that same category with that from the state as well?
Councilor Manny Martinez, I believe there's not. The rest of them do belong to us.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you. Next up is Counselor Justin Salazar Torres. I apologize for you keeping your hand up so long. Go ahead, sir. You have the floor.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor Pro Tem. Honorable City Manager, question regarding the North McCurdy patchwork, the 2,500 square yards. Where approximately is that a start to finish?
So I'm not very clear. I don't have, unfortunately, I don't have the quote that GM sent to me, but I'll go ahead and yield the floor to our street supervisor, Mr. Elijah Mares, if he is on to maybe clarify or give more detail in regards to your question, Counselor.
Thank you.
Mr. Counselor, Mayor Pro Tem, what we're looking at is approximately 500 to 600 feet near Calle Sin Nombre, or not Sin Nombre, I'm sorry, Calle Sin Nombre, and then from Ballast Lane all the way up to where we built, we raised it by Daylily Lane to where we had already raised it up from. So those are the two major areas that we're focusing on, and that's part of the 2,500 square feet. And what we do have is an additional, I don't have it in front of me, but we have an additional amount of footage in order to take care of some of the areas where we have a lot of ponding. So we're going to try to do is build up those areas so that they don't, when the water comes in, we don't have those same potholes that come over and over and over. So we can do a cut out of a section a little bigger to be able to keep that water from being able to saturate and get underneath the subgrade and then causing the ruts that do occur. But those are the two major areas that we're focusing right now. Is I believe the Calle Sin Nombre up to, hopefully up to the stop sign there at Mountain View, and then from Ballast Lane up to I think it's Ida Maestas Road, right there right before Daylily Lane. So it's going to be those two are two of the worst sections in my opinion, and that's where we looked at. And I know the entrance also to the main road is a little bit on the rough side, but those are really bad. So those will be smoothed out, and then we're going to have an additional amount of footage to be able to pick on the spot and say, okay, we need 200 square feet done here. We need another 200 square feet done here, and then they'll overlay with hot mix on there. They'll be able to cut it out and just to do it, just to be able to utilize the rest of that quote there, and still be able to take care of those major areas that we do have.
That's great to hear. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. A follow-up, please.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
All righty. And Honorable City Manager, if you wouldn't mind, just for the public that is listening in, to discuss your bullet on the OHV draft ordinance, please.
Oh, yes, Councilor Justin Salazar Torres. So as all of you know, we've had a request for an off-highway vehicle draft ordinance. So that has been vetted through public safety and our legal department to redline and correct and make it, I guess, a final draft, if you will. So right now we're in the process with collaborating with the city clerk's office to go ahead and start advertising the required time for an amendment to the ordinance.
And have we started advertising just yet?
I will yield the floor to our interim city clerk, Ms. Serrano.
Good evening, Councillor Salazar Torres. We have not as of yet, but I did advise Chief Jimenez that would be submitted to the Rio Grande Sun. And we are hoping to have that on the either the March 23rd or the first meeting in April City Council meeting.
Great. Thank you all. Appreciate you.
You're welcome.
Very good. Thank you, Counselor. We have next up Counselor Denise Benavides and then Counselor Peggy Sue Martinez. Go ahead, Counselor Benavides. You have the floor, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Along those same lines, this ordinance is something that I am highly opposed to. Highly opposed to. And I think that it's going to be a huge liability for our city. And I'm hoping the ordinance addresses children that might be in those ATVs. My question is, because it is against the law, from what I recall, there was supposed to be something obtained from the state in order for us to even move forward. Has that been done?
Councilor Denise Benavides, so from my understanding, I know that, and I know exactly what you're referring to in regards to an application with NMDOT, is that correct?
Absolutely, yes.
Yes, Councilor. So from what I recall, when we had the subject matter expert from the Department of Game and Fish, they had mentioned that NMDOT, if a municipality or a village or a town was looking to pass an ordinance or a resolution to allow off-road vehicles on the streets and roads that they control, meaning city streets, that would be up to the municipality or town or village to do so. But as far as an application with NMDOT was to, if at any point there was needed access to a state road for a short distance to have access to another city road, then that's where an application would have come in through. I guess a prime example that I can think of right here is that anybody living off of North Prince Road. So North Prince is a city street, but to get off to 31 Mile Road, they have to access Fairview Lane for quite a few distance to, maybe maybe 100 yards. So in that sense, that's where the application would come in, that allowing for the city to give permission for all the off-road vehicles to access Fairview Lane for that short duration to get onto another city street and access the off-road area. That was my understanding in regards to the application. Now, and I'll have, if Mr. Jonas Nahum is available to maybe elaborate on his understanding on this as well.
Thank you, City Manager, and thank you, councilors. I'm having a little concern that we're getting far from the agenda here. It seems like we're discussing an OHV ordinance, and I understand that question was raised in the context of the city manager's comments, but this conversation is getting a little bit specific here, and this is not an item on the agenda.
And I agree with you, sir. You're correct. We can discuss during council when it comes before us. And so I'll be prepared at that time.
Okay, and I will as well. Thank you, Councilor, for understanding.
Very good. Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Peggy Sue Martinez, you have the floor, ma'am.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Dennis Salazar. I just wanted to shine some light on the history of the ownership of Oñate Bridge. I'm sure Counselor Salazar Mayor Pro Tem Salazar will agree that the city of Española has never taken ownership of the bridge. There was an original deal that was supposed to be made that we were going to transfer ownership when they built the bridge in San Pedro. But what happened was they realized that there was millions of dollars of rehab that the Oñate Bridge needed, and the city refused to take it at that point, knowing that we would encumber all those costs. So the bridge has never been the city of Espanola's, and I really feel like it's very important for the staff and the governing body to understand the history as well as the legal, because there's a lot that has happened concerning who owns what lights and who doesn't own what lights. And I think we really, really need to be careful in claiming ownership of things that we don't own, because we encumber the responsibility of that ownership. So we need to be extra, extra careful with those issues, especially the lights. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Counselor. I think Public Works Director Stephen Trujillo, you have your hand raised. Go ahead, sir. You have the floor.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. In regards to what you were saying, Councilor Peggy Sue Martinez, it's not that the city is taking ownership over the lights. It's that we've sent out plenty of emails and not getting a response with NMDOT. But it is, we have got a lot of concerns from citizens. So that's why, as City Manager Martinez mentioned, we are going to get them fixed, have our legal looking over it. And if it is, we are going to invoice them. Just to be clear, we're not accepting ownership of the lights, but we are fixing it because it is a safety issue for people along that bridge.
Thank you, Mr. Trujillo, for your clarification. I certainly appreciate that.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Is there any other, anybody else that has questions for our city manager at this time that I may be missing? Okay, with that, I don't think so. Thank you, City Manager Martinez, for the answers and for the very thorough report. It is much appreciated, sir.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Okay, moving on to the next agenda item is items proposed for council consideration, discussion, action items. First one on the list is the approval of amended lease agreement for increased rental space for the Crisis Center of Northern New Mexico. Presentation by our city manager, Javier Martinez. Mr. Martinez, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor Pro Tem Salazar, members of the governing body, Director Mel Sanchez, and Ms. Linda Marie Jaramillo. So before you is this amended agreement that I was asked about the additional square footage that's at the shelter that was not being used either by the city or by the shelter. I believe that we looked back that the history of that square footage, a little over 500 feet, was, I guess, intended for the Espanola Police Department to house an officer there during the night hours to provide some security and comfort to the crisis center and with some other clients that it might have. With reaching out to Chief Jimenez, he stated that they were no longer using that space. And so we met with our legal department to draft an amendment to the agreement that was signed back in December 8th of 2020. Before you is the agreement.
Thank you, City Manager Martinez. Councilors, is there any questions or looking for a motion at this time?
Motion, sir, as presented for discussion purposes.
Second.
Okay, for discussion purposes, there's been a motion by Councilor Peggy Sue Martinez, seconded by Councilor Justin Salazar Torres. Councilor Peggy Sue Martinez, you have the floor, ma'am.
So question, does this amendment affect the lease that we just did in December? That's for the city manager?
Councilor Peggy Sue Martinez. So this is in addition to the agreement signed on December 8th.
Okay, I'm fine with that. And it's just adding the extra space to the original lease.
That's correct, with an additional $143 per month for that space as well.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you, Councilor. Is there any other discussion by the council?
Just thanking the Crisis Center for the job that they do and the service that they provide to some of the most needy constituents of our community. Thank you, Mr. Sanchez and staff.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes, Counselor Ritchie, go ahead, sir. You have the floor.
Since we're talking about the crisis center and we've got the lease in front of us, there was concerns of the rate. Is this the time that we discuss, or do we send it back to city manager to review with the tenants?
Thank you, Counselor. At this time, City Manager Martinez, what would your recommendation be?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, members of the council. I just want to inform the governing body as to how we came to the price listed on the agreement before you. The director, Mel Sanchez, reached out to our General Services Director, Mr. Jeff Sargent, in regards to, there was discovered that the City of Espanola and the Crisis Center did not have a current updated lease agreement for the use of the space. When we looked back in our records, the last agreement that had been executed was in 2011 for a 3-year agreement. On that contract, when I forwarded that information to our legal department to generate a new and updated agreement, it was under the understanding by the wording on that 2011 contract that the Crisis Center would pay $500 a month for the first 2 years of the contract, and on the third year and the third and final year of that contract would be 2014, that the rate would be set at $1,000 per month. So with that information, that's why I went ahead and mentioned that the lease monthly amount payment would stay the same as it was in the contract. I wasn't aware of what the actual payments were being made by the Crisis Center to the city. So I reached out to our ASD director, Ms. Jessica Ortiz, to create me a general ledger on the payments that the Crisis Center had been making. And this information came to me after the fact that this the December 8th contract was executed. This information came to me in February, that in fact the Crisis Center had never changed the rate in the final year as the contract stated from $500 to $1,000, but indeed they stayed paying $500 up until the end of last year, which is December of 2020.
Okay,
we haven't brought them to the table to discuss the rate. So do we need to, I think we need to bring them in and discuss it, because they're stating that this affects their budget.
Counselor Ritchie, I think what your question is can the council discuss any changes or amendments to the rate that the Crisis Center is currently paying to respond to the comments that were made during the public comment portion? And I think that would be fine. I think that this agenda item is to discuss both the rental rate that the Crisis Center is going to pay for that additional space, and just in general, the rental rate for the building and the additional space. So I think now would be a fine time if the council wanted to entertain that discussion, or it's the council's pleasure. They can also send, approve this amendment, and send the city manager back with the legal team to work on any issues that the Crisis Center may have, and we could come back to the council, once those things have been worked out. It's the preference of the council.
Thank you. My recommendation is to send it back to city manager and allow him to renegotiate.
Okay, thank you, Counselor Ritchie. The maker of the motion and the seconder of the motion, would you be in agreement to that? Or let me go back to the maker of the motion, if you would like to comment on that.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Salazar. I believe that we're working on an amended lease agreement for the extra feet that the police department vacated or never used. So I'm okay with voting on that, but I am not okay with including the original concerns. I really feel like, gosh, if in 2000, 3 years after 2011, that would have been 2014, they should have been paying $1,000 since then. So if you think about it, that's 6 years that the city has actually helped them beyond the 500 that they originally approved at that time, with the third year being 1,000. So, you know, I understand now during COVID that things are a little bit more difficult, that monies are hard for organizations to stay afloat. And we definitely want to support the crisis center as much as possible. But I think that we have to be careful here, because the original intent of the previous governing body is very clear in that they wanted to raise that rent in the third year. So I have no issue with the city manager going ahead and revisiting it, but I think we need to do so with caution. And I'm okay with voting on just the least amendment part at this time. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Martinez. Also, the seconder of the motion, Councilor Justin Salazar Torres. I know you have your hand up, so go ahead, sir. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. So for the, I guess for Mr. Nahum, the amendment of this lease is to increase to $1,143, correct?
That's correct.
So my next question follow-up would be for Honorable City Manager. Have we been in discussions with the shelter as of yet, or were they just hit with this? I'm just a little bit curious where the conversation has been and how we just came to be.
Councilor Salazar Torres, no, we have not been at the table with the Crisis Center for negotiations of any changes yet.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to highly agree with Council Peggy Sue Martinez and have us tread lightly on this, and I'm okay with that as well.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Councilor. Is there any other comments or discussion from the council at this time? Okay, seeing none. With that said, there's been a motion on the floor and there's been a second on the floor. So I think now at this time would be to take a roll call vote, but also I think it would be a good idea if possibly the the crisis center, our city manager, be able to meet with the crisis center to be able to possibly discuss this further. But I do agree with Councilor Peggy Sue Martinez and Councilor Justin Salazar Torres to kind of tread lightly. Councilor Manny Martinez, you have the floor, sir. Go ahead.
I think we should table this till our next meeting, which would allow some time for the city manager to discuss this with the crisis center, so that when we do vote on this lease agreement, that both parties are in agreeable upon it, sir.
Okay, thank you, sir. Councilor Peggy Sue and Councilor Justin Salazar Torres, are you in agreement to that, or would you like to proceed on your motion and then we move on the tabling motion? Just so we could have, kind of a pre-agreement here.
I am in total agreement with tabling this until our next meeting, if that gives ample time.
Okay. Councilor Peggy Sue Martinez, are you in agreement as well?
If you have a motion for tabling, let's listen to the arguments on that and then we'll go from there.
Okay. Okay, Councilor Manny Martinez has made a motion to table. Is there a second for that motion?
Did he make
Second.
a motion or did he just discuss the possibility of a motion?
I'd like to go ahead and make a motion to
Thank you.
table this agreement till our next meeting, so it would allow our city manager and the people from the crisis center to discuss this and come up with an agreement on this lease agreement, sir.
I second it.
Very good. There's been a motion by Councilor Manny Martinez and a seconded by Councilor John Ritchie to table this. So correct me if I'm wrong, the motion to table supersedes anything else? No further discussion? Unless, okay.
Yes, it takes precedence. That's right.
Okay, very good. Thank you, our legal counsel, Nahum. So with that, there's been a motion and a second to table. Angelica, could you please call roll?
Counselor Dorothy Didi Valdez,
Okay, so just for clarification, the motion that Counselor Peggy Sue and Counselor Torres Salazar made is no longer, we're not voting for that. We're just voting for the tabling it till next, correct? I just want to clarify.
Yes, Councilor Valdez, yes, that is correct. And this motion to table would be to the very next meeting, if I'm correct, Councilor Manny Martinez? So it gives them the
Yes, that is,
opportunity.
yes, that is correct, sir.
Okay,
Okay, thank you for the clarification. In favor.
Counselor Denise D. Benavides,
Against the motion.
Counselor Manuel J. Martinez,
For the motion?
Counselor John Ramon Vijil,
Against the motion.
Counselor Justin Salazar Torres,
For the motion.
Counselor John L. Ritchie,
For the motion.
Counselor Peggy Sue Martinez,
Against the motion.
Mayor Pro Tem Dennis Tim Salazar,
for the motion.
motion carries.
Okay, thank you, City Clerk Angelica Serrano. So with that, the motion carries. So this will be heard at the next City Council meeting. We'll be able to take it off the table. And this gives them the opportunity to discuss further. Thank you. Moving on to the next item is City of Espanola Resolution 2021-07, a resolution creating a dedicated fund for the collection and expenditure of fire department fees. A presentation by our fire chief, Ron Padilla, and our planning director, Richard Hubler. Gentlemen, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. I'll speak briefly to the resolution itself and then let Chief Padilla speak to any questions that you might have. So following the discussion last fall that established fees for fire ancillary services, we took this resolution to the Finance Committee this spring or last month, and they approved it to establish a special fund, basically, that any fire-related fees would go into, and then that fund would be utilized for the kind of ancillary services that the fire department provides, including training, equipment, and possibly personnel. This is not going to fully fund everything the fire department needs to do. This is just an initial, kind of approach to make sure that those funds we are collecting for things like inspections or false alarms go back to, the provision of those services moving forward. So I'll be happy to answer any questions you have on the resolution, and then Chief Padilla can speak to any questions you have on the fire portion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, there's been a motion by Councilor Peggy Sue Martinez, seconded by Councilor John Ritchie. Discussion, Councilor Peggy Sue Martinez.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Dennis Salazar. So first question I have is concerning the year before, 2020 is when we were first mandated to pay the $50 extra for the fire inspection. All businesses at that time paid the same amount. Am I correct, Mr. Hubler?
That is correct. Towards the end of 2019, when this governing body reviewed the fees that the city charged for a variety of services, we established an annual renewal fee for in-town businesses that included a flat $50 fee. Following on that experience, we revised that fee last year to be a scaled fee that varied based on the square footage of the business. The funds that were collected in the previous year just went into the general funds. Anybody whose fire inspection did not happen during the last calendar year is happening this calendar year at no cost because they are basically already paid for it in a prior year. As we're having new businesses come in or businesses relocating, we're charging the current fees. So any fees that we collect from this point forward will go into this new fund.
So how many businesses in total do we have in the city that are licensed, Mr. Hubler?
So we have currently 544 registered businesses in the city. Of those, 150 are extraterritorial, meaning that they're headquartered outside of the city limits but provide services to the residents or businesses within the city. Those are not subject to fire inspections. And there's an additional 45 or so that are home-based. This includes, offices, salons, online businesses, those kinds of things. Those generally do not require fire inspections unless the nature of their business includes hazardous materials. So we've got roughly 350 or so that are kind of commercial businesses in commercial locations within the city limits.
So we have about 350 brick and mortar here within city limits is your estimate?
That's correct, yeah. We're working to refine that number as we move forward, but yeah, that's a good ballpark.
Okay, thank you. So of that 350, what would be your estimate to what would be in the $50 range and what would be in the other, what would the other two in the middle? Because the 12,000 square feet or larger, there's only probably 8 that I can count that probably would fall that big of a business as far as square footage. With that being Walmart, Lowe's, Harbor Freight, Hacienda Home Center, and the motels, possibly Food King also. But so the majority would fall in that smaller 3,000 and under. And then what percentage do you think that would be?
So I haven't done a full analysis. I did a pretty good kind of representative sampling when we were working to establish the fees last summer. And you're correct. I think we came up with around eight or 10 that would be in the above 12,000 square feet kind of maximum range. The vast majority of the businesses that we looked at, and this includes obviously suites within strip malls, which are all relatively small. It also includes a number of our standalone businesses, probably somewhere between 2/3 and 3/4 are going to be in that $50 kind of less than 3,000 square foot range. There's a couple dozen businesses that I identified that are kind of right in the middle around that 6,000 square foot, maybe a little under, a little over. This includes, some of the restaurants, places like O'Reilly's or Napa Auto Parts or the AutoZone, these kinds of places. So the vast majority for sure are in that $50 range. We've probably got a couple dozen at most, kind of in the middle area there. And then, like you said, about half a dozen or slightly more that are in the max range.
So estimating ballpark, you're thinking anywhere from $25,000 to $30,000 collected on that fund. Is that about right, do you think?
That's about correct. Yeah, that was kind of the number that I came up with when we were developing the fees earlier. Yeah, and it's not a substantial amount of money, but it's certainly a significant, and that's one of the reasons that Chief Padilla and I started talking about the fact that this could go towards the provision of that service, because this is one of the things that he and I both feel we owe to the citizens and the businesses of the city, is to do that kind of life safety and that sort of thing. In particular, what's called community risk reduction, and that includes plan reviews as we move forward and get that under our jurisdiction. A member of the fire department will be assisting our building inspector with plan reviews related to the fire code. It includes all those other kinds of activities that are aside from rolling out on an emergency call.
So you sort of alluded to what my next thought is concerning the 2020-06 and the 2020-07 ordinances and what this does with that funding of those ordinances. So in my view, being that we had already enacted it and we didn't do the fire inspections, I really feel that it's important to make sure that we follow through with our end. So my recommendation is that we the city ordinance of 2020-06 establishes the fire fees for inspection of commercial properties. I would hope that that fund would stay and be earmarked for a fire inspector to hire somebody specifically for that purpose, or to help augment pay for that position to make sure that those get done. And then on the 2020-07, that is establish fire fees for false or misuse and alarm calls. I have no issue with training or whatever, but I really feel like the fire inspection fee should be to make sure that we do have the inspections happening and that we're not in violation of just collecting it for nothing. So that's my recommendation, and I can put that in a motion if the attorney feels that that has to happen like that.
So I'll defer to Mr. Nahum in a second, but first I'd like to preface his comments by saying that the creation of this fund is necessary for us to be able to earmark anything. And I guess my comment and maybe his response can relate to within this resolution, if we need to add an additional language or a line that specifies that those funds that come under 2020-06 are specifically designated towards the fire inspector personnel costs.
Right. So let's hear from Mr. Jonas, see what he thinks about this.
Thank you, Councilor Martinez.
Yes, sir.
And I would agree with Richard. You know, if you look at the ordinance now, it does broadly earmark funds from 2020-06 for fire inspections, because the fund states that it can be used for that purpose. But it's not totally specific, and it doesn't limit those funds to be only used for fire inspections. So I think if you wanted to make a motion to further clarify that funds from 2020-06 shall only be used for fire inspection fees, I think that's also what Richard was alluding to, that could be a part of your motion to amend the ordinance in that way.
Okay, so I will amend my previous motion, making sure that the 2020-06 ordinance establishing the fire fees for inspection of commercial properties stays with the funding of a fire inspector. And then the 2020-07 alarm fees for excessive or false nuisance alarm calls that can be utilized for training. What other things are listed here? Equipment, material, and personnel costs affiliated with the fire department. And then I think we as a whole community also need to look at how we support the fire department and how the vision for the whole community needs to be set up as to what direction we really feel that we need to grow them or whatever we need to do and fund them the way they need to be funded. So that's my motion.
Can you tell?
Okay, thank you. There's been an amendment to the motion, as Councilor Peggy Sue Martinez just stated. The seconder of the motion, are you okay with this new language as well?
Yes, I second the amendment.
Okay, very good. So there's been the amendment to the motion, Councilor Peggy Sue Martinez, seconded by Councilor John Ritchie. Any further discussion by the council at this time?
Honorable Mayor Pro Tem, I've got a question.
Yes, Councilor Justin Salazar Torres, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. If we can hear from Chief himself and let us know what his thoughts are regarding these amendments and what the fire department's recommendations would be as well.
Thank you, Councilor. Chief Jimenez, Chief Padilla, you have the floor, sir. Go ahead. Sorry about that.
Mayor Pro Tem and governing body. I can see where this would, what Councilor Peggy Sue Martinez is saying about the just directly for inspectors or just for the inspection. I totally agree with that. But if we're looking at the fee to be anywhere from $25,000 to $30,000, as I presented in the Public Safety Committee meeting, I did put some numbers up on what it would cost to have an inspector. I mean, those are just what I thought a inspector would get paid within the city, which is a very low number as a fire inspector, investigator, and public education officer, as well as being able to fight fire and be out in the field, which would also bring our ISO rating. I'm all about it if the city can find some funding to fund this fire inspector. It is a very needed position within the city. If we're going to save money, the fee specifically for the fire inspector, if we collect that money for the next 3 years, then maybe we would have some money for to try to hire a fire inspector. If we're going to use it for overtime for the guys that we have right now, that would be good too. To have that little cushion. If it just limits it to that, I do understand that. I think that's a great idea. But if we have something catastrophic and we need money for whatever other reason, then our hands are tied specifically for that inspector. I think that we need to, as the city, need to find that funding to use this money to fund and find the funding for a fire inspector. We are very light on the top within the city of Espanola, within our fire command staff. The city of Las Vegas has, I think, 6 people up in their command staff, if not more. And we have myself, which is a deputy chief, and then a fire inspector, which would also, like I said, fight fire within the ranks. So that also brings up meeting our 4 people on scene, another 4 people within the 8 minutes, and start putting those numbers into ISO. So, I mean, whatever the governing body's pleasure is, but I am going to reiterate again that this is a position that does need to be funded, and it needs to be funded here very, very soon.
Thank you, Chief Padilla. Councilor Salazar Torres, you still have the floor, sir.
I'm good, Honorable Mayor Pro Tem. I do appreciate that. I see Councilor Peggy Sue, so I'll yield the floor to her.
Okay, very good. Councilor Peggy Sue Martinez, follow up, ma'am.
Thank you, Councilor Justin Torres Salazar, and thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Dennis Tim Salazar. You know, I can't disagree with Chief Padilla. I really believe that this responsibility falls on the city of Espanola and the governing body, because it's our job to make sure that you're funded and able to protect our constituents to the best of your ability. The fire inspection job, I believe, is important, especially since we enacted the ordinance to go ahead and charge that fee. We had charged it before and we didn't do the fire inspections, and I really feel like that's where we're going to get in trouble. So I feel like it's important for us to revisit the budget, look at what the difference is between what we collect and what we need to hire that person. I would look to funding that in the next fiscal year come July. And I think that needs to be a priority for the community. In the meantime, I would not have an issue with any firefighters that were doing inspection making a little overtime on this situation. So my hope is that the governing body does understand the importance of the position, funds it in the fiscal year coming up. And in the meantime, we do what we can to make sure that we're honorable to the businesses that have paid that fire inspection as of today. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Is there any further discussion by the council at this time? Okay, hearing none, I think we could proceed with a vote. Angelica, if you could please take roll.
Mayor Pro Tem, Councilor Denise Benavides had her hand up.
Okay, I apologize. Sorry about that, Denise. Councilor Benavides, you have the floor, ma'am.
Thank you. I just wanted to commend both Director Hubler and Chief Padilla for getting the resolution done, for getting the fee schedule out there. I know that it's something that Chief had been trying to get done for quite some time. And I highly support funding a fire inspector. I think it's something that we should have done a long time ago. And I think that it's time that this council starts thinking about what positions are important and imperative to our city, what ordinances, what resolutions, because sometimes I think we kind of get a little off track, and we really need to start thinking about what are the things that are most important, that are the most beneficial for our city. So I hope that we can go down that path, but I do support a fire inspector. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Very well said. Okay, is there any other discussion before we proceed to the vote? Okay, I don't think I see anything more. So Ms. Serrano, if you could take roll, please.
Counselor Peggy Sue Martinez,
In favor of the motion?
Counselor John L. Ritchie,
In favor.
Counselor Justin Salazar Torres,
In favor.
Counselor John Ramon Vihil,
In favor of the motion.
Counselor Manuel J. Martinez,
In favor?
Counselor Denise D. Benavides,
In favor.
Counselor Dorothy D. Valdez,
In favor.
Mayor Pro Tem Dennis Tim Salazar.
In favor.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, counselors. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Chief Padilla. Thank you, Mr. Hubler as well. We appreciate the presentation. Okay, moving on to the next item is City of Espanola Resolution 2021-08. A budget resolution increasing revenues and expenditures in the amount of $28,000 for capital outlay award to the Espanola Municipal Community Outreach Program to plan, design, purchase, and construct a greenhouse. The presentation will be by our grants manager, Diane Hawkes. Ms. Hawkes, you have the floor, ma'am.
Thank you. Good evening, Honorable Mayor Pro Tem, members of the governing body. I'm here this evening requesting approval of Resolution 2021-08. This will establish budget authority, for the Capital Outlay Award received by the Community Outreach Program. Again, this is for purchase and construction of a greenhouse up at the court facilities.
Motion to
I
approve,
stand for
sir.
any questions.
Second.
Thank you. There's been a motion by Councilor Salazar Torres, seconded by, I think it's Councilor Ritchie. Any discussion at this time?
I just have a question, Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes, go ahead, Councilor Ritchie.
Isn't there already an existing greenhouse? Are we upgrading or adding on?
Thank you, Councilor Ritchie. This greenhouse would be in addition to the existing greenhouse that's up there right now.
Okay, I just wanted to know the utilization. So his program is expanding. Excellent.
Very good. Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Peggy Sue Martinez, you have the floor, ma'am.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I just want to recognize Judge Salazar and his staff for their continued efforts in applying for the grants that are available to help our community. This is something that we would never be able to get our hands on if they hadn't applied for it. So we certainly appreciate them. Also, Ms. Hawkes, shout out to you and what you do for our community. I know that you work with different departments, and we certainly appreciate you filing these grants in a timely manner so that we can qualify to bring this money to the community. We definitely look forward to more gardening over there. It's really interesting to see what they're doing. So thank you all so much. Thank you, Judge Salazar, staff, and thank you, Diane Hawkes.
Thank you, Councilor.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Manny Martinez, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Councilor Ritchie had kind of taken my part of my question there as far as we were expanding or if we were replacing the current structure that they have. But I would like to make a recommendation to our municipal court, and that's if they would plant or start in those greenhouses some plants that could be utilized throughout the community. Some starter plants, and that way we can beautify more of the rest of the city as well. I'm not taking away from the tomatoes that he's planted in the past, but it would be nice to see some more vegetation, flowers and such throughout the city as well, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Is there any further other discussion by the city council? Okay, I don't think I see anything else, any hands up. So at this time, Ms. Serrano, if you could call roll.
Mayor Pro Tem Dennis Tim Salazar,
Yes, for the motion.
Counselor Peggy Sue Martinez,
In favor of the motion?
Counselor John L. Ritchie,
In favor.
Counselor Justin Salazar Torres,
In favor.
Counselor John Ramon Villa,
For the motion.
Counselor Manuel J. Martinez,
In favor?
Counselor Denise D. Benavides,
In favor.
Counselor Dorothy Didi Valdez.
For the motion.
Motion carries.
Very good, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Hawkins, for the presentation. Moving on to the next item, City of Espanola Resolution 2021-09, adoption of required community development block grant, which is CDBG, annual certifications and commitments. Ms. Hawkins, you have the floor once again, ma'am.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor Pro Tem, members of the governing body. I stand before you this evening requesting approval of Resolution 2021-09. So as part of our funding for our Ranchitos Park Improvement Project, we did receive CDBG funding, of which we do need to adopt these certifications and commitments annually, if you will, as part of the requirements for the funding.
Move to approve, sir, as presented.
Second.
Very good. Motion's been made by Counselor Peggy Sue Martinez, seconded by Counselor Justin Salazar Torres. Discussion, Counselor Peggy Sue?
Under discussion, just thanking the community block grant for what they do for the city of Espanola and acquiring funding and everything else. So we certainly appreciate them being involved with us. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Counselor. Is there any other discussion by the council? Okay, I don't think I see anything else. So with that, Ms. Serrano, can you call roll?
Counselor Dorothy Didi Valdez,
In favor.
Counselor Denise D. Benavides,
In favor.
Counselor Manuel J. Martinez,
In favor, and thank you, Ms. Hawkins, for all that you're doing with those grants, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Counselor.
Counselor John Ramon Villa,
For the motion.
Counselor Justin Salazar Torres,
In favor.
Counselor John L. Ritchie,
In favor.
Counselor Peggy Sue Martinez,
In favor of the motion?
Mayor Pro Tem Dennis Tim Salazar.
For the motion.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to the next item on the agenda is approval to purchase a lowrider for the streets department. I'm sorry, pickup truck. The presentation is by our street supervisor, Elijah Mahrez.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor Pro Tem and councilors. I have before you a quote here for a pickup truck. It's been 2 years since we purchased one. Last year, we sacrificed getting an extra or replacing a truck in order to outright pay for a bucket truck that was badly needed in the department. A lot of the vehicles that we have in the department are coming up on 20 years. We have the one new one that we did purchase 2 years ago, and some of the other ones we have are from like 1995. We're just trying to replace an aging fleet, and the deal was go with something that's kind of the bare minimum here. As you can see, there's no power equipment required, just a half-ton, four-wheel drive, gas engine, and just trying to keep something similar in the fleet here. So, you know, tires will be the same, stuff will be there, so it's less maintenance options when it comes to fleet having to take care of them. It's kind of why we went with what we did there, and then next year we'll see what we can do at that point.
Motion for purposes of discussion.
Second.
Thank you. There's been a motion by Counselor John Ramon Behill, seconded by Counselor Peggy Martinez. Counselor Behill, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One of the things I was greatly in support of this in Public Works Committee, but I wanted to see, maybe Diane, you had some information, is an update on that asset management plan that we were working with Wilson and Company or Souder Miller. I'm not sure. Diane?
Ms.
Oh, okay.
Hawkins, are you there?
Yeah, she probably got on. Well, anyway, I'm really in support of this, but I think it's really important we devise that asset management plan, creating an adequate depreciation expense. These guys are working hard out there. That they deserve to have good quality inventory and equipment out there when they're serving the public. Having vehicles from 1995, it's ridiculous. And one of the things I've been saying is we have to budget for when we make these large expenses for this new inventory. But I would hope that we wouldn't completely, depreciate it beyond where we wouldn't be able to get at least a return investment when we take it to the auction for a lot of these vehicles or really much running them down to the skeleton. And so I just really think this is important, but it's important that this city really works on that asset management plan going forward for all fleet, not just specifically streets department, but for all fleet.
Thank you, Councilor Vihil. I would also like to add to that this did unanimously pass our Public Works Committee last week, and this discussion was also brought up by Councilor Vihil last week as well. And it's very important just for us as a council. I know sometimes it's easier said than done, but to be able to give each department the tools, the proper tools to be able to do their jobs to the best of their ability. And I think this governing body, along with our staff, is moving in that direction. But of course, the asset management is very crucial. Is there any other comments or discussion by the council at this time?
I have a question, Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes, Councilor Peggy Sue Martinez, you have the floor.
Thank you. Can we identify what fund the funding for this truck is coming out of?
Okay, I don't have the line item number here in front of me, but it is a vehicle fund that I do have. It's usually about 25,000 or 27,000, I think, every year. And I believe
in the approved budget, correct, Elijah?
yes, this has been in the approved budget. I usually try to keep within the budget or try to roll over what I do have from previous years in order to be able to purchase stuff without having to finance. Same thing like I did last year. That's why we gave up one vehicle last year in order to purchase the bucket truck outright with what funding I had saved for 2 years prior to that.
Right.
So we're just trying to make sure that we can stay within our budget, and then anytime after that, if we're appropriated more, that'd be greatly appreciated. So that's pretty much where we're at on this one.
I want to recognize Elijah and his efforts to always be conscious of the whole picture and the whole budget, and utilizing cost savings in his own budget and rolling them over to do things at times. So we certainly appreciate that kind of thinking and just making do sometimes, but we also want to make sure that your staff is safe out there. So thank you again, Mr. Maras, for the presentation, and thank the Public Works for approving this to come to full council.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor, and also for recognizing Mr. Mares. Councilor Manny Martinez, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, and thank you, Mr. Mares, for bringing this to the table. I'd like to see if maybe we could do an inventory list of all the vehicles that we do have in the fleet that are getting to that point as this vehicle that you're replacing is, so that way we can properly budget those items within the next few years and see if we can bring our fleet up to par per se, to make sure that all the vehicles that you need, sir, are good and safe for you to be out there with and reliable, sir. So I would like to see if we could do that. That way we don't have anything coming up, a last minute type of a thing. We need this vehicle, we need it now. But I would like to see some sort of audit done. Having a vehicle in service for over 20 years, I don't know if that's a good idea to keep them that long, but I think we need to keep an eye on our fleet, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Manny. Any other discussion by the council?
Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes, Councilor John Ritchie, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you. Just want to reiterate what Councilor Vihil said is that we need an asset management program, and that will alleviate having equipment 20 years we can work on our budget, and we need an asset program.
Thank you, Councilor Ritchie. Is there any other discussion by the council? Okay, I don't think I see anything else. So with that, City Clerk Angelica, could you please call roll?
Counselor Peggy Sue Martinez,
In favor?
Counselor John L. Ritchie,
In favor?
Counselor Justin Salazar Torres,
In favor.
Counselor John Ramon Beal,
For the motion.
Counselor Manuel J. Martinez,
In favor?
Counselor Denise D. Benavides,
In favor.
Counselor Dorothy D. Valdez,
For the motion.
Mayor Pro Tem Dennis Tim Salazar.
For the motion.
Motion carries.
Mayor Pro Tem, can I indulge you in a request to switch the last two items in order? Because I feel like the payoff agreement deals with the approval of that Vector purchase, but I think the payoff should come before we do the approval because it's contingent upon the payoff agreement. So could I request to change item I to before the Vector truck?
That's fine, Councilor Peggy Sue, as long as there's no opposition by anybody else from the council, I'm fine with that, absolutely fine. Hearing no opposition, okay, let's move on to that item. Thank you, Councilor. Okay, so it'll be the approval to pay off financing agreement, contract number 3356108 with KS State Bank for wastewater brown bear paddle aerator in the amount of $126,570.42. This is a presentation by our Public Works Director, Stephen Trujillo. Mr. Trujillo, you have the floor, sir.
Mayor Pro Tem, members of the governing body. So we are seeking to move funding that we had set aside to purchase a camera truck in the amount of $126,570.42. And the reason being is because our Vector trucks are giving us a bit of issues, and I've been in the shop, and I'll elaborate on that on my next presentation. But in this, we had this funding set aside. The Vector is needed on a daily basis, and with this funding, we're looking to pay off the aerator that we bought for the wastewater treatment plant, which is a piece of brand new equipment. And that way we could be able to finance the new Vector unit. And I'll stand for any questions that anybody has.
Motion to approve the payoff, sir.
Second.
Motion's been approved by Councilor Peggy Sue Martinez, seconded by Councilor Justin Salazar Torres. Any discussion? Councilor Peggy Sue?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Salazar. And thank you, Stephen Trujillo, for your presentation and also for your work, and City Manager for your work in this most important payoff. So the City of Espanola had about $150,000 in the account where we were saving for the camera truck. Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay, and at that point, we're taking the 126 out of that fund, leaving that fund with possibly about $25,000.
Yes.
And I want to reiterate that that's also an important vehicle that we need to be looking into in the future, because that can save us a lot of time and money being able to see the pipes from the inside. So it's something that I definitely want to see the city do, but I do believe that right now the Vector is the priority because we can't function without that. The payoff frees us up of the payment that we normally make at 6 months of about 32,000, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
So we would have about 3 years left on this unit had we kept finance, right?
Yes.
What is the savings to the city by paying that off early in interest?
And interest, I believe it's about $6,000.
$6,000 of savings?
And we do need to pay that if the council approves. We do need to pay that before March 20th, 2020.
Okay, so there's a savings to the city of $6,000. The total amount for payoff is 126,570.42. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, I'm fine with that, and I think it's good that we're paying it off and we're moving on to purchase a Vector, much needed Vector, so I'm fine. Thank you so much, Mr. Trujillo.
Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Is there any further discussion by the council? Counselor Denise Benavides, you have the floor, ma'am. I saw you this time.
Thank you. I just wanted to go ahead and commend Stephen and the entire Public Works Committee because these guys just go above and beyond and they look for savings any which way. And, you know, they just juggle their numbers. And like I mentioned in Public Works, we really need to figure out a way to give them some additional budget as we do P&Z to continue getting the equipment that they so desperately need to do their jobs, even though they always find a way. But I mean, just thinking outside the box and coming up with ideas, items like I just need to commend the entire public team. Stephen, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Any further discussion? Okay, I don't think I see anything else. So with that, City Clerk Angelica Sedano, can you please call roll?
Counselor Dorothy D.D. Valdez.
For the motion.
Counselor Denise D. Benavides.
For the motion.
Counselor Manuel J. Martinez.
For the motion?
Counselor John Ramon Vihil.
For the motion.
Counselor Justin Salazar Torres.
For the motion.
Counselor John L. Ritchie.
For the motion.
Counselor Peggy Sue Martinez.
For the motion.
Mayor Pro Tem Dennis Tim Salazar.
I am for the motion.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Next item is the approval to purchase a Vector unit. Wastewater Department presented by Mr. Stephen Trujillo and Wastewater Treatment Plant Supervisor, Mr. Rodney Talcott. Gentlemen, you have the floor.
Mayor Pro Tem, members of the governing body. So before you were presenting to purchase a new 2021 Vector truck, we're seeking the approval in the amount of $425,621. A couple options. We did look at all options going around to see what it would be. We could finance it for 3 years at a 3.49% interest rate at $151,889.66. There's also a 5-year term for 3.49%, which is $94,240.43, and a 7-year agreement at 3.49, which is $69,582 a year. The city is looking to go with the 5-year financing. Another option that we did have was renting a Vector unit, but renting a Vector unit is $13,000 a month just to rent one, not including any maintenance that'll need to be done on it. And doing the math at a 5-year agreement, that would be $780,000, which would be a Vector truck and a half. So I recommend not going that rate because it is quite expensive. We have received an approval letter pending council approval to finance the total amount for the Vector truck. As I mentioned before, we set aside the funding from the camera truck to be able to pay off the Brown Bear to get this Vector truck, but that's still not going away. We are still, I talked with ASD Director Jessica Ortiz, and we're planning on that maybe fiscal 2023. So the truck did not go away. We'll also be looking for grants and other options as well. If approved tonight, the first payment will not be due for the new Vector until a year from the initial purchase date, which gives us a year from the day we purchase. So if it's tomorrow, it'll be a year from tomorrow. The current Vector we are trying to replace is 20 years old and has no trade-in value. We looked at that option to see if we could go that way, and it's the parts are obsolete for it. So it's not really, well, there's nothing we could do in it to get any money towards the new Vector. We also did take it in for inspection while it was there to see what it would take to fix just the things that the company saw that was majorly wrong with it. The hopper tank, rear hopper tank, just to fix that, replace it with the new one was $127,209.62. It also need an alignment, a driver's side airbag, engine oil leaks, and some other lights that needed to be fixed, which was $12,834.30, coming out to a total of $140,043.92. And that's not including any future issues that may arise, because that's not to say the other older equipment will go on. And these trucks are so expensive to initially purchase, but also in the maintenance as well. You have a pump go out, there goes $15,000 right away. So they are pretty pricey. And finally, we depend on both Vector trucks. We have a larger one, which we are still going to be using. This one is a smaller Vector truck because our large Vector truck cannot get some of these smaller city streets that we have. So that's the need for two of them.
Motion to approve.
Second. Thank you. Motion's been made by Councilor Salazar Torres, seconded by Councilor Ritchie and Councilor Peggy Sue Martinez. Further discussion, council?
Sir?
Yes, Councilor Peggy Sue Martinez, go ahead. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. So, Mr. Trujillo, first and foremost, I'd like to thank the County of Los Alamos for graciously helping us out in a pinch when our Vector units were down. I know that they had come down to Espanola a couple of times to help your staff. So we want to recognize them as great neighbors and helping us out in a pinch. But it also makes me realize the importance of what this truck is and how it's used and how it's necessary to keep things literally flowing. So the city of Espanola normally would pay $32,000 every 6 months for the Brown Bear that we had just purchased, the aerator that we had purchased recently, correct?
Yes.
So the overage on this payment is $30,240.43 annually, correct? From the $94,000 that we would be paying instead of the $64,000 that we had been paying to the other payment. So the up on the payment is $30,240.
Yes.
And we have that available.
Yes, we have that available in the wastewater equipment and machinery line item 505-160-48020. After making that payment, we will have $56,000 left, and for the next year's budget, $344,000 remaining.
Okay.
Already took
I only have two other concerns. One is 3.49 is a little bit high in today's borrowing market. So I'm wondering if the city of Espanola has ever considered borrowing their own money. Being that we have a substantial savings, have we ever considered borrowing from a bank that has our money there at a lower rate? Has anybody ever done some research on that?
I have not brought that up personally. I don't know if Jessica's on, but maybe she could elaborate on that if she's on, but I have not.
That would be interesting to see if we could possibly get a better deal on that interest rate, but I still feel like this is an important purchase, and we're a little bit under the gun because I know that this has really been necessary and we've had it broken. So it may be something that we may look at down the road when we're buying things like this that are so costly, and maybe trying to save the public a little bit of money with an interest rate. The other thing, Mr. Trio, could you touch base a little bit on the warranty, please?
So on the warranty, Mr. Talcott had discussed more with them on that portion of it. I'll refer to him so he could go over the warranty on the truck.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Temp and councilors. About the warranty, we're still working on the particular warranty factors of it. I believe it's for over a 5-year period, but I'll have to confirm that information. And I believe there's also a stipulation that we can extend that warranty at a later date for service purposes.
Can you answer me, Mr. Talcott, where this unit is coming from?
Pete's Equipment is where we potentially are purchasing this piece of equipment.
Where is it located?
And Albuquerque, New Mexico.
So delivery is how much?
Delivery will be an expected date delivery.
There's a charge for the delivery, correct?
I believe there is.
Freight charge of $3,000.
$541.72.
Is that for wherever it's made to be delivered into Albuquerque?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I wondered. If it's in Albuquerque, why are we paying $3,000 for it? But I understand.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
they get built out of state and then shipped to Albuquerque.
All
And
right,
the
I
sole source
understand.
vendor.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Trio. Thank you, Mr. Talcott.
Thank you, Counselor. Moving on, Counselor Denise Benavides, you have the floor, ma'am.
Thank you. I just kind of wanted to answer Councilor Peggy Sue Martinez's question about borrowing against our own money. I would love to be able to do that, but I know we went down that path sometime back with the bank, and we're told that the bank would not do that because we are a municipality. However, I think it's worth visiting it again. And there were several issues that were brought up on the side of the bank itself, the borrowing entity, that they had in concerns. But I do think that, you know, it is worth going back and revisiting that again. It doesn't hurt.
Yeah. Thank you, Counselor.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Counselor. Okay, is there any other discussion by the city council at this time? Okay, I don't see anything else. So, so with that, Ms. Serrano, can you call roll?
Counselor Peggy Sue Martinez,
In favor.
Counselor John L. Ritchie,
In favor.
Counselor Justin Salazar Torres,
In favor.
Counselor John Ramon Vihil, Counselor Manuel J. Martinez,
In favor?
Counselor Denise D. Benavides,
In favor.
Counselor Dorothy D.D. Valdez,
For the motion.
Mayor Pro Tem Dennis Tim Salazar.
For the motion.
Motion carries.
Okay, thank you. At this time, I'd like to thank our city clerk, Angelica Serrano, and her staff for the preparation for our meetings. And of course, you know, checking in with the council to ensure that we have quorum and, you know, all the legwork before, during, and after the meeting. Just want to let you know we appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. Okay, moving on to the next item is a big action item, which is adjournment. Anybody up for a motion for adjournment at this time?
Motion.
No move.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. We are adjourned at 8 o'clock exactly. Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Y'all have a good.
Mayor Pro Tem. Thank
Good
you.
night. Good job, man.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.